Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Dion, and today, as you can see from the title, we are going to be talking about leather. This is a video that has been on my little video list for a minute, and it's basically comparing and contrasting real leather, aka cow leather, versus leather alternatives such as shrimp and fish leather, versus fake leather that's made out of vinyl and plastic, versus plant leather that is coming around now. And what is the most sustainable? What has the smallest environmental impact? What is the best for your wallet, for your wardrobe? All of that, because it's quite nuanced, and I think it'd be an interesting conversation. So in this video, we are going to be talking about what is leather, why is it so desirable, because before we get into leather alternatives, I want to understand what is it about leather as a material that has made it such a staple in human history. And then we're going to go into what is faux plastic leather, fish leather, and then plant alternatives. And we're going to compare carbon dioxide emissions, water waste, waste management, and degradation time. So how long does it take for this item to decompose? So if you like sustainable fashion and conversations around fashion in general, then definitely make sure to subscribe to this channel because I post videos every Thursday. And with that, let us get into it. So I will have a link to a Google Doc in my description, and that Google Doc will have all the sources that I used. If I link them in the description, it would just be a little bit too bogged down, too much in the description bar. So it'll be a link to a Google Doc with all of the articles that I used, but this isn't a scholarly source. Don't use this in a peer-reviewed research journal. This is a fun little YouTube video where I'm just comparing different leather. New information's always coming out, and there's always more research to do. So first, let's just talk about what is leather. I know you guys know what it is, but let's talk about it. So leather is a strong, flexible, and durable material obtained from the tanning or chemical treatment of animal skins and hides to prevent decay. The most common leathers come from cattle, sheep, goats, equine animals, buffalo, pigs, and hogs, and aquatic animals such as seals and alligators. The practice of tanning leather has been around for over 7,000 years. Leather is often considered a co-product or a byproduct of the meat industry. In terms of CO2 emissions, the carbon footprint of bovine leather ranges from 65 to 150 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per square meter of production. With water, 1 ton of hide or skin generally produces about 20 to 80 square meters of wastewater, including chromium levels of 100 to 400 milligrams per liter, sulfide levels of 200 to 800 milligrams per liter, high levels of fat and other solid waste, and notable pathogen contamination. The tanning process represents a considerable strain on water treatment installations. However, in terms of decomposition, leather biodegrades slowly, taking around 25 to 40 years to decompose. For waste management, tanning is especially polluting in countries where environmental regulations are lax, such as India, the world's third largest producer and exporter of leather. The higher costs associated with the treatment leads to illegal dumping to save on costs. For instance, in Croatia in 2001, proper pollution abatement costs $70 to $100 per ton of raw hides purchased against the $43 per ton for irresponsible behavior. In November 2009, one of Uganda's main leather-making companies was caught directly dumping wastewater into wetland adjacent Lake Victoria. So now we know what leather is. It is the skin of most commonly cows and other animal hides, and you chemically tan it, meaning you take off the hair and you make it soft, malleable, and the leather that we see today. And in that process, tons of wastewater and chemicals go into the air, go into the water systems. And obviously there's also this big pollutant aspect of it, as we just saw with the waste disposal, where it is actually more cost beneficial to pay the fee for irresponsible behavior than it is to do the responsible thing in the tanning process. So there's a lot in the leather industry that needs to be reworked. In the beginning, I mentioned that leather is often considered a co-product or a byproduct of the meat industry. So a byproduct would mean that a butcher is butchering all these cows and has all these skins left over and doesn't know what to do with them. And someone takes it and makes it into leather. That's essentially a byproduct. A co-product versus a byproduct is almost this incidental, accidental, leftover thing that we're using. Whereas a co-product is like, oh, we killed 2 birds with 1 stone, or we killed 1 cow with 2 stones. Whatever. But essentially from 1 cow, we're getting meat and leather. So it's incentivizing both the meat industry and the leather industry to work in tandem to continue harvesting these cows. So it's kind of an iffy situation of whether it is a byproduct or a co-product. Currently, because of the massive meat and leather industry, I would probably go more so say co-product, but we should be working towards it solely being a byproduct, us solely making leather out of stuff that would have been discarded. All right, so now we know about leather, its waste and environmental impacts. And before we get into leather alternatives, I want to really talk about what is it about leather that is so desirable. It has been used in human history for 7,000 years plus. There are generations of families for hundreds of years that have perfected the tanning process of leather. So why leather? The first quality of leather is that it's strong. As seen from this graph done by a study, leathernaturally.org, leather compared to faux alternatives is much stronger and tear resistant. And it also is a lot more flexible. Though it's protective and strong, it's much more breathable than, let's say, faux leather, like a vinyl or something. There is a breathability to leather. And at the same time, it can also protect you from the elements like snow and rain. It's not water resistant, but leather and water is not that big of a deal so long as you moisturize it afterwards. Speaking of which, leather lasts a lifetime if you take care of it. When you look up the life expectancy of a leather saddle or whatever, it could last multiple generations so long as you continue to clean and moisturize it. Same with leather shoes. You can get them resold again and again, and they will last a very long time. And compared to a lot of the leather alternatives, leather does degrade quickly. 40 to 50 years is not that bad. It's still a long time, but it's not that bad. My boyfriend and I right now are watching Vikings, this show on Netflix, and naturally they use a lot of leather. It is a protector for wounds. It is used in their saddles, their boots, their shoes. It's used for everything, and it's such a amazing material that's almost like connects all of human history, which I think is really cool. So now that we know what the properties we're looking for in a leather alternative, we want something breathable, flexible, strong, something that's malleable, something that's good in different elements, and something that can degrade quickly, be replaced easily, and obviously gives that leather look. So the first thing we're talking about is faux leather. Vinyl, pleather, all of that jazz. Faux leather is most often made from 2 different plastic polymers, polyurethane and polyvinyl chloride, PU and PVC. They are the most commonly used due to their wrinkled texture, which helps give the effect of real leather. It's made with fossil fuels. It can be harmful to human health, and it's not biodegradable. PVC is considered one of the worst types of plastic due to its environmental impact. However, this material can be made from recycled sources, which assists in reducing waste and making use of already available resources. In terms of the carbon dioxide footprint, 15.9 kilograms of CO2 per square meter compared to real leather's 17 kilograms. For water, synthetic fibers from clothing are the biggest source of microplastic pollution in the ocean. In terms of waste management, being made from plastic, it would take hundreds of years to break down, releasing yet more plastic into the planet's ecosystem. Recycling this kind of material isn't much better thanks to the chemicals it takes to break down. The degrade time of faux leather or vinyl is 500 plus years. And if you know anything about faux leather, it's not breathable. It's so hot and horrible. It starts to peel and crack over time, and it doesn't mold to the skin in the same way. There's like stretch pleather in a way, but if you've ever worn like true vinyl something, it doesn't stretch. This is a pleather belt that I got in 2018, and you can see that it is falling apart. I mean, like, it is completely... Whereas this vest is from the 90s. It was my friend's mom's, and it's 100% leather, and it looks brand new. So if you think about strictly the vegan or the animal price of it, I guess faux leather would be, quote, better. In terms of environmental impact, the bovine industry versus polyurethane and PVC, it kind of equals out. So next we're gonna talk about this interesting new-ish leather called fish leather, made out of the piracuru fish in the Amazon. So the pronunciation is pirarucu, Piraruca. No. What? Pirarucu is a type of fish commonly caught and eaten by locals in the Amazon, as well as an increasing amount of people across Brazil. These fish grow to nearly 10 feet in length, and the popularity of their meat was gradually making them extinct. While local communities eat the meat, skin, and as much as the rest of the fish as possible, large slaughterhouses typically discard the skin as waste. Indigenous communities working together with non-indigenous ravine settlers manage the piracuru in preserved areas of the Amazon. Most of it is exported, and the US is the primary market. In the ravine communities, people eat the fish, skin, and all, but in the slaughterhouses, where the bulk of the piracuru catch is processed, the skin was being discarded. From the tanning that uses zero heavy chemicals, environmentally safe, based on a blend of biodegradable acrylic resins, polymers, glutarodelhide, synthetic and vegetable tannins, to the natural drying in aniline. The water that runs out of the tannery after treatment goes straight to irrigation. This is definitely a newer form of leather. So my sister-in-law is Brazilian, and my mom went to visit Brazil, and she came back with actually a purse from my sister-in-law's mother that is made out of piracuru fish scales. So what I was told getting this purse is that indigenous communities have been eating this piracuru fish for centuries and always discarding the skin. Some of the articles that I read here say that the indigenous communities eat the skin and all. So that's kind of like up in the air. I don't know if it's a byproduct or a co-product, because different articles said different things, that it was never used, the skin, and some articles said it was used, but in the slaughterhouses it wasn't. So take that with what you will. This is also marketed as sort of a renewable or more sustainable form of leather. Like I said, the Brazilian authorities have had to put management on the piracuru fish to ensure that it doesn't go extinct, because it was at risk from overfishing. So it's interesting because I feel like I've been told like a few different stories about this. On the one hand, it's this endless giant fish in the Amazon that indigenous communities have been eating forever, throwing away the skin, and now we have a use for the skin. Is sort of one story that I was told. And the other story is that yes, there's fish in the Amazon, but it is at risk of extinction. We have to be able to manage the fishing and not overfish or anything. And some slaughterhouses were throwing away the skins, but a lot of indigenous communities were still using them. Regardless, it is a new-ish form of leather. Of course, it's not vegan, but if we're thinking of it from a byproduct or co-product point of view, it could possibly be a byproduct. And according to some studies, it has 12 times lower carbon footprint than bovine leather. Obviously, because this is a newer invention or way of tanning these fish scales, not super sure on the carbon footprint and everything. It's all very localized and still quite new. But as you can see, it's sort of these layers of the fish scales to make this leather base. And I don't know if this back part is also made out of the fish leather or if that is the bovine leather and only these like scaly parts of the fish scales. I don't know, but very, very cool, very interesting. And if there could be a balance with the indigenous communities and not overfish and everything, it could be a nice leather alternative. And next we're gonna get into like a bunch of different plant alternatives. I just wanted to mention that one, the fish leather, just because I so happen to have an example of it, that it's sort of this new, possibly more sustainable version of leather. Well, I guess it is going to be a little bit more sustainable. The tanning processes are a lot less toxic, and fish compared to like bovine agriculture has a lot less of like the methane and everything else that goes into cattle production. That is such a hard thing on the environment, just the endless grass, the endless methane produced, everything that comes around cows. So I think at a base level, the fish have less of an environmental impact, but again, it's still something that we have to look through. So before we get into what is the best kind of leather, I'm just gonna run through 4 different types of plant leather. There are dozens of different patents on plant leather. These were the 4 biggest that I saw. There's always more coming out. So if you have a leather alternative or a plant leather brand that you like, feel free to comment that down below. These were just like 4 that I decided to pick, but there are quite literally dozens. So this first one is Miriam. It's pronounced Miram, not Miriam, like the woman's name. Can you tell that I filmed that at 5:30 in the morning? Miriam is entirely plastic-free and 100% plant-based. There are several versions of Miriam, whether for shoes or accessories, and they rely on different ingredients, including natural tree rubber, rice, cork, and coconut waste. Milo is one of the 2 mushroom leathers on the market. The mycelium, the roots of the fungi, used to make this leather alternative, are grown in vertical farms powered by renewable energy using agricultural waste. The mycelium grow into a foam-like substance that is harvested and processed into sheets of soft material. It's made from a plant-based polyurethane blend. Pinatex is made from the fiber of leaves of pineapple plants grown in the farms of the Philippines, Bangladesh, and Ivory Coast. It takes 480 pineapple leaves to make 1 square meter of pinatex, but it is described as waste from the pineapple industry. The fibers are purified using a corn-based polylactic acid, a kind of bioplastic. This is turned into a mesh that is coated in pigments and water-based polyurethane resins. Deserto is a leather made from the prickly pear cactus leaves that are grown without chemicals or irrigation on a ranch in Mexico. The leather is made by combining milled cactus leaves with protein and non-toxic liquid polymer. Deserto did not disclose what the liquid polymer is, citing intellectual property concerns, but it is described as a biopolymer. However, a report released by the Freiburg Institute in 2021 investigated the presence of chemicals and plastics in a range of leather alternatives, suggested Deserto does contain polyurethane, and found 5 restricted chemical substances in the sample tested. And that's the biggest common denominator among all of these leather alternatives is the PVC, the polyurethane. Those 2 chemicals, even when they're in bioplastic form, even when they are a plant-based polyurethane, are extremely hard to break down in the environment and aren't found as often in regular leather. Obviously, regular leather does have a ton of other chemicals that go into the tanning process. So I'm not saying one is better than the other, I'm just saying they are different. But a big problem with all these wonderful plant alternatives is that because they're a mix of a bioplastic or a plant-based polyurethane and some sort of plant leaf, it often does make it hard for it to degrade and break down over time. That being said, obviously I'm all for new plant alternatives, anything that can kind of move us in the right direction. But the next section I want to discuss is it's not so cut and dry. I kind of want to go through my priorities when shopping and what I'm looking for and what's the best based on what you want, I suppose. But a big downside of these different plant leathers is we don't know the performance aspect. We don't know how long it's going to last, and we don't know its degrade time or long-term how this is going to affect the environment because it's so new compared to bovine leather. So what is the best? These are my priorities in terms of when I'm shopping for leather or a leather alternative. This is kind of what I'm going to go through, and it was quite hard to think of these things, but I feel confident. So the first thing that's going to be the most sustainable, the best, the most environmentally friendly as a baseline is going to be secondhand. Secondhand pleather, plant leather, real leather, anything, but secondhand is going to be first. Obviously, we need to use the resources that we already have. If we stopped every single leather tanning place in the world and said we have to use up all of the pleather and leather that is currently on this planet in the landfills, in those giant hills that we see all over the global south, we need to use every single scrap of leather that is already on this planet. And then when we run out of that, we'll figure out Pinatex and all these other plant alternatives. If we did that, we would be working through a lot of leather. So we should really focus on secondhand first. I would say the next thing is we want something that is upcycled or recycled. Is it made out of recycled something, upcycled something, patchwork? It kind of goes under secondhand as well, thrift flipping, but is it a pleather skirt made out of all these waste materials or something like that? Again, taking things that are already existing and making them something new. The third tier is that it would be preferred if it's a byproduct, not a co-product. Co-product, again, is we're killing this animal for these two things. A byproduct is we have all this waste, let's try to find it. Kind of like the fish scales or the pineapple leaves. These are a result of the pineapple industry, so we're going to use all these leaves and turn it into a plant leather. I would say that is like the third best, most ethical way of going about this. After that, we want to get to a renewable resource. I'm always hesitant to say renewable resource because water and air are renewable resources, but at the rate that we're using them, we're gonna run out of clean air and clean water. So when we think of renewable resources like the mycelium, the mushroom leather, I'm a little bit hesitant on that. But because it's, quote, renewable and sustainable in that way, I would say that's probably the next best thing. After it being a byproduct of waste, we want to get things that are renewable. So it's not secondhand, it's not an upcycle, it's not something that would have been thrown out, but at least it's a renewable resource like the mycelium. And in the bottom two tiers, I didn't know plant-based leather versus real leather because I don't know how plant-based leather is going to perform. Leather's been around for 7,000 years. I know how it's going to perform. A leather saddle can last a lifetime. If we make saddles for horseback riding out of plant leather, is it going to withstand the sweat, the salt, the saddle soaps, the horse shampoo, me rubbing against the saddle? Are the stirrup straps going to be able to withhold somebody standing up in it? If I have plant leather boots, when I rub against the horse, is that going to get all messed up or is it going to stay true? With leather, I can clean and moisturize it after every single use to maintain it. Do these plant leathers have that same infrastructure to keep and repair? Because along with leather, we also have an entire ecosystem of repairing leather. Generations of people who know how to handle leather. I had a leather belt that was my dad's that I gave to my stepdad and he got a bit of it fixed. Is that same repair process going to be provided with these plant leathers? Because I can go to a cobbler and get my leather shoes fixed. I don't know if I can do that with plant leathers or leather alternatives, and I certainly can't do that with faux leather. So in terms of what's more sustainable, well, am I going to have to rebuy these plant leathers multiple times in terms of working wear, a saddle, boots, any of that? Is that going to have the same type of repair and maintenance infrastructure as leather, where I can easily get an $8 thing of saddle soap? I can easily get leather cleaner, leather moisturizer to make sure it lasts a long time. What are the resources I can use to make sure that my plant leathers last a long time? Is there infrastructure for me to get my plant leather fixed and repaired? So I don't know which is better, plant leather or real leather, because I don't want to have to repurchase things. So in that sense, I lean more towards real leather because I want something durable and flexible and everything. And I don't know if the plant leathers are going to perform the same way. Obviously on the bottom tier is going to be faux leather for me because it's plastic, like new faux leather. Why would I want to buy new plastic? We don't want to do any of that. But in terms of plant leather versus real leather, which is better? It's almost like, what are your values? Is it overall environmental impact? Is it just animal welfare? Because it's a lot more nuanced and complicated. In terms of purses, accessories, I think plant leather and leather alternatives is amazing. We shouldn't be using real leather. In terms of workwear, saddles, boots, I don't know if plant leather can stand up to real leather. And in that case, rather than buying 4 pairs of plant leather shoes over your lifetime, I'd rather you just buy 1 pair of leather boots to last you a lifetime. So it's a lot more nuanced than you'd reckon. Also, always gonna be pro those things because we want to make them better. We want to improve so we can sort of get further and further away from using virgin animal products and only using upcycled animal products, and then for the new stuff using byproduct waste from plants and all of that. But obviously new fake leathers at the bottom. So yeah, my priorities are going to be secondhand, upcycled/recycled. a byproduct, a renewable resource, real leather, plant leather, pleather. Those bottom three are buying new. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. There's not really a right answer. It sort of depends on what your values are and so many questions. I also don't want anyone to like feel bad for buying new, especially shoes. Good footwear is so important. Supportive footwear is so important. And like, I'm someone that likes to wear my shoes to the bone, and I've realized like that is hurting my body. That is not good for me. Or like I'll buy like cheap, flat, thrifted shoes that have no arch support, are not supporting my feet, and like my back hurts. Your girl's back hurts, okay? So no judgment on buying shoes new, but good quality for sure. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, definitely give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to this channel because I post videos every Thursday. Follow me on TikTok and Instagram if you want even more from me. And I have a Patreon where I post 2 exclusive videos there a month. So definitely go check that out. Leave a comment down below what else you'd like to see from me. And with that, have a happy, happy day. Bye.